Please bow our head and put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Lord Jesus, as we enter this training hall, we bring your presence with us. We speak your peace, your grace, and your perfect order into the atmosphere of this room. We acknowledge your lordship over all that will be spoken, taught, decided, and accomplished within this day. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the gifts you have given to each one of us. We do not take them lightly, but we commit in using them responsibly and well. Give us fresh supply of truth and beauty to which we draw our strength in doing our job. Anoint our creativity, our ideas, and our energy, so that even our smallest tasks may bring our honor. Lord, when we're confused, guide us. When we're worried, energize us. Lord, when we're burned out, infuse us with the light of your Holy Spirit. May the work that we do and the way that we do bring hope, life, and courage to all that we come into contact with. And Lord, even this day, most stressful moments, may we find rest in you. In your strong and powerful name, we pray. Amen.
Our free seminar on transfer pricing and permanent establishment. Today is June 25, 2021. Our seminar will last on 2 hours up to 12 o'clock. No? So, if you have some concerns or clarification, we will answer them after the seminar at after 12 o'clock. No? So, I would like to call on the participants who have already registered today. Abad Annabel Mulanda, Amistoso Carlin from Caloocan, Bilin Lizel from General Trias Cavite, Bencio Raisa, La Trinidad Benguet, Bernabe Rose Ann, Umingan, Pangasinan, Kakayan Christian Brian, San Carlos City, Pangasinan, Cantor Carl Joseph, San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Jocades Ryan, Pavia, Iloilo. Diretso Adrian Lee, Lagro, Quezon City. Ferrer K, Poblacion Oeste, Pangasinan. Ferrer Reynald, Mapandan, Pangasinan. Freyas Erica, Basista, Pangasinan. Galiema Rizel, Villasis, Pangasinan. Gascon Norwayne, Baguio City. Hoson Richel, Tandang Sora, Quezon City. Lamayo Maria Cindy, San Pedro, Laguna. Layaw Lionel, Tabuk City, Kalinga. Lucero Karen K, Cainta, Rizal. Magdayi Merdel, San Jose, Batangas. Nieto Jose Manuel, Bacoor City, Cavite. Utchavi Kathleen Grace, Gibraltar, Baguio City. Ponchoso Esterlina, Cagayan de Oro. Rada Maria Florenza, Ginubatan, Albay. Ramos Monica de la Cruz, San Carlos City, Pangasinan. Raon Divina Rose, Sual, Pangasinan. Salisa Arlene, San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Saludo Ira May, Umingan, Pangasinan. Salvamante Genebeth, Sampaloc, Manila. Sigera Joy, Fairview, Quezon City. Yao Lilian, si Ma'am Lilian, Tondo, Manila. PSBA din pala si Ma'am Lilian. Okay. Mababait pagka PSBA. Sanchez Lenlen, Rodriguez Rizal. Pan Ralph Joseph, Quezon City. Bayani Mabinilin, Quezon City. Peralta Mary J. Ann, Bea, Pangasinan. Berdicin to, hari? Christian, Quezon City. Canaleta Mikaela, Quezon City. Rodas Pamela, Dagupan. Giruela Andrea, Dagupan. Marami sila. Agliam, ano to? Shikaina. Shikaina Grace. Also Dagupan, Kolehiyo di Dagupan. Kapwa Mary Jane, Kolehiyo di Dagupan. Soriano Jeff, Pangasinan. Consejo Shane, Quezon City. Di Guzman Fem, Kolehiyo di Dagupan. Doroy Mary Jane. Wala address to. Bokel Hazel from Quezon City. So ilan na sila lahat? 55. Okay, so shout out po sa lahat ng participants natin. Thank you for your participation in this seminar, no? Kasi makikita mo talaga yung mga tao na they are chasing opportunities, no? Kasi free na nga, tapos yung iba ayaw pa hindi naman namin kailangan yan. So, for those people who are chasing opportunities, then opportunities are for you. No? So this free webinar on transfer pricing and permanent establishment is just a series of free webinars that we're going to conduct. Meron pa tayong dalawa next week, no? Yun for tax treaties naman and also international taxation. Siguro touch out na rin natin ng konti yung international tax planning. So they are very important if you wish to expand your knowledge in taxation, especially today that we are living in a digitized economy. And very important po that we know international taxation, not only local taxation, because there is already what we call as global taxation. So more or less ready na tayo kasi yung matutunan natin na mga old laws, no, mga domestic laws, influence yan sila na international taxation. Okay? But of course, our topic naka-anchor po sa transfer pricing. Why? Kasi yung basic natin talaga dito is about transfer pricing. And we just relate transfer pricing to another topics which are equally important. No? So today or this morning, this free webinar is about transfer pricing and permanent establishment. Our focus is on permanent establishment, but how it relates to transfer pricing and how the arm's length principle is to be applied in the issues of permanent establishment. If you have concerns during the seminar, if you have questions, no, as we did before, you just write it in the chat portion po ng ating YouTube channel, and then we will address that. Answer your queries after 12 o'clock, after our lecture. No? Kasi we only have 2 hours and kinunsize ko na lang kasi overview lang talaga yung kaya natin sa 2 hours. No? So the application of the arm's length principle, which is the principle applied or adopted by transfer pricing, is very important. And this is in relation to the permanent establishment concept in our tax treaties. So the arm's length principle, of course, ang heart of transfer pricing is comparability. So after that we have discussed the basic principles in transfer pricing, so ngayon, alam nyo na yung 5 comparability factors. So that 5 comparability factors are nature and characteristics of goods or services, whether tangible or intangible. We have FAR analysis or the functions, assets, and risks. It's the second comparability factor. Then the third is the economic condition. Fourth is business strategies. And fifth is the contractual terms. So yung 5 comparability factors na yan, don't forget about it. No? Kasi pagka nag-practice na kayo, nag-apply na kayo, na may application na yung knowledge in transfer pricing, that 5 comparability factors are very important. And usually, dyan din naka-anchor yung study natin in transfer pricing. And the transfer pricing methods, there are 5 transfer pricing methods that we learn in the basic transfer pricing, and that is introduced by the OECD. What are these 5 transfer pricing methods? We have the CAP, or the comparable uncontrolled price method. We have the resale price method, the RPM. We have the cost plus method, or the CPM. We have the TNMM, or the transactional net margin method, and we have the profit split method, which can either be contribution or the residual profit split. No? And the most important also in transfer pricing, which is for compliance purposes, the work of the internal accountants, or internal staff, is about documentation. Because even if on the other side, you know the comparability factors, you know the transfer pricing methods, but if you lack documentation, then your work in transfer pricing is useless. And then in relation with arms and principle, we have the intragroup services for the transfer pricing, and also cost contribution arrangement. But of course, these factors, or these topics listed here are not conclusive. No? May iba pa dito, just like the evaluation of intangibles, or the intangibles in transfer pricing, also the business restructuring. They are also very important. But naka-focus lang tayo on the application of the arms and principle and how we apply it in the transfer pricing. Okay, so what is permanent establishment? In the international taxation, or if you deal with the tax treaties, nandyan palagi ang permanent establishment, no? Ako, kailan ko lang narinig itong yung permanent establishment na to palagi. When I study transfer pricing na, dati parang wala lang, di mo lang pinapansin, ano ba yung permanent establishment na yan? Kasi when we use a permanent establishment, then it is a fixed, no? Fixed place of business. Establishment siya. Permanente, siguro concrete siya, siguro you can just imagine what is a permanent establishment, no? But that is very important in tax treaties, or yung convention in double taxation, because permanent establishments, may mga gray area which the planner natin, or yung mga tax consultant natin, yun ang ginagawa nilang loopholes in order to avoid the payment of taxes. Kaya the concept of permanent establishment is very important when you study international taxation. So what is a permanent establishment? So we have to consult the Article 5 of the Model OECD Convention on Income and Capital. Akin na nga, Hari. Pakita natin sa kanila yung, nandyan, OECD, yung makapal na libro. So this is the Model Tax Convention on Income and Capital. This is the 2014. Alam nyo, kung mabasa nyo lahat ito, this is available in the internet. No, napakaganda, and ang daming mga gray areas that will be clarified pagka nabasa nyo lahat ito. Ang liliit lang, kaya sumasakit yung mata ko, no? Pagka binasa ko to, kasi, you know, liliitan ako sa niya, yung text, no? Liliit, sakit sa mata. But this is a very important book when you study international taxation. Dito naka-anchor yung double taxation na tinatawag nila, and also the tax treaties, no? Although yung pinagmulan talaga ng law on tax treaties, yung Vienna Convention, which will touch a little pagdating na po next week on our transfer pricing and tax treaties, no? So we will discuss the tax treaties so that meron kayong ideas on how these tax treaties also work. So ngayon, you have an idea of what is a permanent establishment, and what is this concept all about, and how does permanent establishments concept used in avoiding payment of taxes, no? Yun ang pinaka-core ng study natin. So, for the purpose of the convention, which is the model convention, no? Ang tawag dyan, MTC, Model Tax Convention, the term permanent establishment means a fixed place of business. So, pag sinabi mong fixed place of business, it is permanent. It is not temporary. Ha? Kasi dyan papasok yung taxability niya pag fixed na siya. Kasi pagka temporary lang siya, hindi siya taxable. No? Fixed place of business through which the business of an enterprise is wholly or partly carried on. No? So, maliwanag yan, ha? Maliwanag yung definition. Pero pagdating na sa other provision, itong Article 5, dito ako na minsan yung nalilito, no? Because okay na sana yung provision. Kaso lang dinadagdagan nila ng gray area to make it gray, no? So, number 2, the term permanent establishment includes especially, no, letter A, place of management. So, ibig sabihin, if there is a place of management which is situated or fixed in a certain place, consider na rin siya as permanent establishment which is already taxable, no? So, permanent establishment also include branch, no? So, yung concept ng branch dito sa Pilipinas is, ano yan, very common sa atin, no? Kasi, pag nag-branch out ka, anong ibig sabihin nun? Nag-expand ka ng business mo, naglagay ka ng ibang store, okay, nag-branch out ka. So, parang common yan dito sa atin, no? Or, an office, no? So, kung may office ka, just like, meron kang accounting office, meron kang human resource na office situated in one country. So, considered na din yan permanent establishment. Or a factory. Ano yung factory? Place of manufacturing products. So, factory is also considered as permanent establishment and hence taxable. No? Or a workshop. No? Sa mga those who are rendering services. So, workshop are also considered permanent establishment. Or a mine for those extractive industries. Ano po yung mga extractive industries that we know? We have the mining, no? Mining industry. We have the oil, nag-extract yan ng natural resources, no? Yung mga minerals, yung mga nagka-quarry ng mga sand and gravel, no? Yung oil or gas well, yung mga oil na yan, natural resources yan, galing yan sa ilalim ng lupa, no? So, ang tawag dyan, extractive industries. Why? Kasi ini-extract sila from the natural resources at ginagawa sila na product, no? Industrial products. So, they are considered as permanent establishment, no? Paragraph 3 of the Article 5 of the Model OECD Convention, ano sabi dito? A building site or construction, no? Or installation project. Ang dami installation projects ngayon, lalo na yung mga internet, no? Mga internet service provider. Ang dami nilang mga installation ngayon na mga cell sites, no? So, installation project constitute a permanent establishment only if it lasts more than 12 months. So dito, may if na siya at saka may time na requirement. If it lasts for more than 12 months. So kung hindi siya umabot ng 12 months, tapos na yung installation, then hindi siya consider na permanent establishment. No? Kaya yun ang, kung baga, alam mo yung batas, you know how to play around, no? So, since 12 months, yung consider ka na as permanent establishment, yung installation project mo, then tapusin mo siya below 12 months para hindi siya considered as permanent establishment and you will not be taxed, no? So, yun. Kasi, yung mga tax consultant, lahat ng wordings, lahat ng words na nandyan sa batas, pinag-aaralan yan and how they go about it, no? Ganun yung mga lawyers. So, paragraph 4. Notwithstanding, ito yung paragraph 4. Dito sumasakit yung ulo ko. Why? Because when you define permanent establishment, doon sa paragraph 1, okay na sana yun eh. Kaso lang nilagyan nila ng paragraph 4, no? So ito yung paragraph 4, ito naman yung pamatay doon sa paragraph 1, no? Para bang alam mo na yung purpose din ng mga gumagawa ng batas, no? So letter A, ito yung sabi sa paragraph 4 na notwithstanding the preceding provisions of this article, it's yung paragraphs 1 to 3. The term permanent establishment shall be deemed not to include, so hindi kasama. So napaka-thin line lang ng kasama at hindi kasama, no? So letter A, the use of facilities solely for the purpose of storage, display, or delivery of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise. So ano yun? Hindi kasama yung facilities daw na ginamit na storage, display, delivery. Di ba sa storage, display, delivery, nandyan na, business na yan. But don't worry because meron tayong 2018 na attribution of profits to permanent establishment. May mga wordings na dito na inamend or parang kinorek na yung OECD because nakita nila na ito na yung ginagamit na loophole dito sa batas na to, no? Storage, display, or delivery of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise. Dito ako sumakit ang ulo kasi the way I see it, yung storage, display, delivery ng goods or merchandise, whether you like it or not, these are business activities. And these are not auxiliary activities, no? Core functions ito ng business. So sabi ko, this is contrary to the Article 1, no? So letter B, the maintenance of a stock of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise solely for the purpose of storage, display, or delivery. Diyan ako hindi maniniwala. Why? Because meron kang goods, i-display mo or i-deliver mo. Business na yan, no? That's business. The maintenance of stock of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise solely for the purpose of processing by another enterprise. Ito mas okay pa to. Bakit? Kasi hindi mo siya ibebenta as is, ipoprocess pa. So purposely, although na ibebenta mo siya as raw materials dun sa iba, parang konti, no? Pwede pa. Pero yung A and B, sobrang labo, no? Letter D, the maintenance of a fixed place of business solely for the purpose of purchasing goods or merchandise or of collecting information for the enterprise. Ito yung mga regional area headquarters, no, ng mga companies na nagko-collect lang sila ng information for the enterprise. No? And then yung purchasing. Letter A, the maintenance of a fixed place solely for the purpose of carrying on for the enterprise any other activity of a preparatory or auxiliary character. Ano ba yung mga preparatory activities in business? Yun yung mag-purchase ka na raw materials, no? Yun yung mga research and development mo. Ano naman tong auxiliary character? Auxiliary lang yung parang support lang siya doon sa main activity, no? Pero para sa akin, these are also business activities, no? So letter F, the maintenance of a fixed place of business solely for any combination of activities mentioned in some paragraphs A to E. No? So ito yung A to E dito sa number 4. So provided that the overall activity of the fixed place of business resulting from the combination is of a preparatory or auxiliary character. You will find later on na ang ginawa naman dito para ng mga big businesses, para preparatory or auxiliary character pa rin yung kanilang activity, they fragmentize their business, no? Instead na isang activity lang siya, parang chop nila para fragmented siya at it will look like auxiliary pa rin siya or preparatory character. Pero if you try to look at the whole activities, kompleto na or the whole business cycle is already done, no? Sa activities. Number 5, ito yung paragraph 5 na to ng number 5 na to ng Article 5 of the Model OECD Conventions. Karugtong pa rin to sa provisions for permanent establishment. Oh? So notwithstanding the provisions of paragraphs 1 and 2, where a person other than an agent of an independent status to whom paragraph 6 applies is acting on behalf of an enterprise and habitually exercises in a contracting state an authority to conclude contracts in the name of the enterprise, that enterprise shall be deemed to have a permanent establishment in that state in respect of any activities which that person undertakes for the enterprise unless, ito naman ang red flag natin pag nagbabasa kayo ng law. Yung word na mga unless, however, no? Yan ang titingnan ninyo. Kasi okay na yun, tuloy-tuloy na sana yun. Permanent establishment na yun. Pagdating ng unless, yan na naman. Exception na yan, no? So unless the activities of such person are limited to those mentioned in paragraph 4. Ano yung mga activities sa paragraph 4? Yun yung mga exempt, no? Which, if exercised through a fixed place of business, would not make this fixed place of business a permanent establishment under the provisions of that paragraph. Ito yung mga sinasabi ko na mga panggulo, no? Kasi okay na sana, permanent establishment na. O ito naman, may unless. So, hindi na siya permanent establishment. Okay? So, ano yung sinasabi dito sa number 5? Ito yung may agent, no? Halimbawa, yung business or company in other country, meron silang agent dito sa Pilipinas of an independent status, no? Independent status siya. Pero that agent is acting on behalf of the enterprise, no? And habitually exercises. Siya yung pinaka-agent of the company, no? So in a contracting state, authority to conclude contracts. No? So, pwede siyang kumuha ng kontrata and then conclude contracts in the name of the enterprise. So, ganun ka, tindi yung authority niya, no? Nagre-represent niya, nakakapag-conclude siya ng kontrata in the name of the company or enterprise. No? So, anong mangyayari doon? The enterprise deemed to have permanent establishment in that state, no? In respect of the activities that person undertakes. Bakit? Kasi that person undertakes na yung concluding contracts, nakakapag-sign na siya ng kontrata in behalf of the company. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? May permanent establishment, may branch na dito sa Pilipinas, yung company represented by this independent agent. No? Yan po yung ibig sabihin. Okay. Ito yung last paragraph ng Article 5, no? So, an enterprise shall not be deemed to have a permanent establishment in a contracting state merely because it carries on business in that state through a broker, no? So, kanina, permanent agent. Yung number 5, permanent agent. Itong number 6 naman, broker, no? General commission agent or any other agent of an independent status provided that such persons are acting in the ordinary course of their business. No? So, hindi sila consider na yung broker, general commission agent, or other agent, hindi sila consider na permanent establishment or branch dito sa Pilipinas. Kung anong ginagawa nila, they are acting in the ordinary course of their business. Ano ba yung ordinary course of business ng broker? No? Kung broker ka halimbawa ng real estate, broker ka ng yung sa customs, no? Ano ba yung ordinary course of business mo? So, yun ang tinatrabaho mo, no? Nagiging broker ka ng ano yung activities mo related to that being a broker. So, if you are acting in the ordinary course of your activity as broker, then hindi ka consider na permanent establishment. No? Ito yung magulo pa rin para sa akin na provision. The fact that a company which is a resident of a contracting state controls, ito yung mga control transactions na, no? Or is controlled by a company which is a resident of the other contracting state or which carries on business in that other state, whether through a permanent establishment or otherwise, shall not of itself constitute either company a permanent establishment of the other. No? So, yung isang company daw, controlled by another company, hindi mo pa rin siya ma-consider na permanent establishment kahit na there is an element of control. That's why nire-reconcile natin yung transfer pricing and also this permanent establishment. Dito na sila nag-overlap, no? Kasi sabi niya, hindi pa rin establishment even if there is control between the company of the other state and the company na nandoon yung other company controlled by another company. So hindi mo pa rin daw masabi na permanent establishment. But for transfer pricing purposes, pagka controlled na yung isang company by another company, halimbawa parent company and the subsidiary, there is already the application, there must already be application of the arm's length principle in terms of their financial and commercial transactions. Which sabi nga natin, dapat siya is kagaya ng independent parties. No? Similar to that of the independent parties. Why? Kasi sabi natin sa transfer pricing, the true transaction is that of the independent parties because there is no element of control. No? Samantalang yung transactions between related parties are artificial. No? May artificial management na yan because of the control of one party over the other. Okay. So ito po yung provisions of permanent establishment sa Model OECD Convention. No? So, pinakita ko na sa inyo yung from the Article 5, Paragraph 1 hanggang sa 7. No? Hanggang 7. So, dyan define natin kung ano ba talaga yung permanent establishment. So, itong permanent establishment are meron siyang place of management, no? Fixed place of business. Pag sinabi mong fixed place of business, nandun talaga siya naka-fix. Hindi yung palipat-lipat or now you see, now you don't. No? Nandun talaga naka-permis. No? So, dinefine po dito. And since this is Article 5 of the Model OECD Convention, this is just a model. No? This is what we call a soft law, ang mga ginagawa ng OECD Model Convention. But since they are the one na gumagawa, no, ng policy, tax policy, international tax policies of the world, very, very authoritative naman itong gawa ng OECD. No? So, this is just a model convention na mga provisions. No? So, kumbaga sa sample lang to. And, paano naman to i-apply? This will be the content also of the tax treaties pag nag-draft na ng tax treaties yung mga countries. No? So, I will give you an example of the tax treaties between the Philippines and Japan, no? Because we have what we call as tax treaty provisions on permanent establishments. Yung nandoon sa OECD Model Tax Convention, walang teeth yan, no? Hindi natin pwedeng i-enforce yan. Gagawa muna tayo ng tax treaty at yan ang i-enforce natin between the treaty countries. So, halimbawa, Pilipinas at saka Japan, i-enforce yan between Japan and the Philippines. So, but without the tax treaty, hindi mo ma-enforce yung provisions na yun ng OECD Model Tax Convention. So, we have tax treaty provisions on permanent establishments dun sa mga tax treaties concluded between the Philippines and other countries. And right now, we have 43 countries where the Philippines has an existing tax treaty. No? So, let us see the RP Japan Tax Treaty. Nakakasunod ba? Nakakasunod kayo? Kasi pag ni-review ko, iba na yung dinidiscuss ko, iba yung nasa screen. Sige. Sige Okay. So, for RP Japan Tax Treaty, ito na po yung example ng provisions wherein nandoon yung permanent establishment provisions of a permanent establishment in RP Japan Tax Treaty, and this is also under Article 5, no? Article 5 of the RP Japan Tax Treaty. So ano pong sabi dito? For the purposes of this convention, the term permanent establishment means a fixed place of business through which the business of an enterprise is wholly or partly carried on. So same. Di po ba? Number 2, the term permanent establishment includes especially a store or other sales outlet. Doon sa model convention, ano yung sinasabi niya doon sa number 2? Place of management, no? Branch, office, factory, workshop, mine, oil, gas well. Pero dito sa RP Japan, anong sabi niya dito? The term permanent establishment includes especially a store or other sales outlet. Oh, yan ang sabi ng RP Japan. Also, it includes branch, office, factory, workshop, warehouse, no? Warehouse yung bodega. Mine, oil, gas well, quarry, or other place of extraction of natural resources. No? And number 3, a building site or construction or installation project constitutes a permanent establishment only if it lasts more than 6 months. Anong sabi dito? More than 6 months. Doon sa Model OECD Convention, anong sabi niya? More than 12 months, no? Or 1 year yung sa kanya. Sa RP Japan, 6 months lang. So, pagka ang construction site, installation project is more than 6 months na, consider na siya na permanent establishment or fixed place of business in the Philippines and hence taxable. Bakit ba napaka-importante that you are going to determine whether an establishment is a permanent establishment or not? Because papasok dyan ang taxability. Pag sinabi mo na permanent establishment, then the contracting state, kung nasaan siya, pwede na siyang i-tax. No? Pagka hindi siya permanent establishment, then the state or the country cannot tax that permanent establishment. No? Kasi hindi na pa siya consider na permanent establishment. Okay. Number 4, still, ito yung RP Japan Treaty. No? So, notwithstanding the preceding provisions of this article, the term permanent establishment shall be deemed not to include. So, ano naman yung hindi included dito sa RP Japan Tax Treaty? Letter A, the use of facilities solely for the purpose of storage, display, or delivery of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise. Kinopya nila talaga yung paragraph 4 of the OECD Model Tax Convention. The maintenance of a stock of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise solely for the purpose of storage, display, or delivery. Letter C, the maintenance of a stock of goods or merchandise belonging to the enterprise solely for the purpose of processing by another enterprise. Ito yung Japan RP Tax Treaty. Letter E, the maintenance of a fixed place of business solely for the purpose of carrying on for the enterprise any other activity of a preparatory or auxiliary character. No? So yun yung question mark. Ano yung preparatory at ano yung auxiliary character? No? Letter F, the maintenance of a fixed. Kasi pag core business function na yung ginagawa niya, hindi na yan preparatory, hindi na yan auxiliary. No? Letter F, the maintenance of a fixed place of business solely for any combination of activities mentioned in subparagraphs A to E. Remember na yung A to E na subparagraph under number 4, ito yung mga exempt or hindi sila permanent establishment. No? So provided that the overall activity of the fixed place of business resulting from this combination is not of a preparatory or auxiliary character. So hindi siya preparatory or auxiliary character. So, magiging permanent establishment siya. Okay. Number 6. Number 5. Where a person other than an agent, ito naman yung provision ng RP Japan sa agent, no? Where a person other than an agent of an independent status to whom paragraph 7 applies is acting in a contracting state on behalf of an enterprise of the other contracting state, that enterprise shall be deemed to have a permanent establishment in the first mentioned contracting state in respect of any activities which that person undertakes for the enterprise if that person has, ito na, permanent establishment na siya pag may agent siya, halimbawa dito, no? That person has and habitually exercises in the first mentioned contracting state an authority to conclude contracts in the name of the enterprise. So, authorized siya to conclude contracts in the name of the enterprise. So, ano bang nandiyan sa contract? Contract yan with the customers, contract yan for the services. So, yung contracts na yan, may business, may business reasons. Hindi yan magkukontrata for nothing. So, unless its activities are limited to those mentioned in paragraph 4, yun yung mga hindi permanent establishment, which, if exercised through a fixed place of business, would not make this fixed place of business a permanent establishment. No? Yan yung paragraph 4, hindi permanent establishment. Letter B, that person regularly secures orders in the first mentioned contracting state, wholly or almost wholly for the enterprise itself or for the enterprise and other enterprises which control or are controlled by that enterprise. So ito talaga, sigurado siyang permanent establishment kasi regular yung pagkuha niya ng order. No? Letter C, that person maintains in the first mentioned contracting state a stock of goods or merchandise. No? So, nag-maintain siya ng merchandise or stocks. Number 6, an enterprise of a contracting state shall be deemed to have permanent establishment in the other contracting state if it furnishes in that other contracting state consultancy services. No? So, consultancy services are also considered na magiging permanent establishment ka na or regular na yung business mo. No? If may consultancy services or supervisory services in connection with a contract for a building construction or installation project through employees or other personnel other than an agent of an independent status to whom paragraph 7 applies, provided that such activities continue for the same project or two or more connected projects. Ito na, for a period or periods aggregating more than 6 months within any taxable year. Samantalang doon sa Model OECD Convention, 12 months, no? Sa Japan, ginawa niya 6 months lang. Alam niyo, ang mga Hapon, laging nagmamadali yan, no? Kaya para sa kanila, itong 6 months, napakatagal na, no? Kaya nga, pag may construction project sa Japan, 24 hours ginagawa. No? Bawa, kalsada. Diba? Makikita mo talaga kung halimbawa hindi ka dumadaan sa isang kalye sa kanila ng 1 week. O, tapos ginawa na pala yun. Surprise ka na lang. Iba na yung kalsada dinadaanan mo. Because in 1 week time, tapos nila yun. Sa atin, Diyos ko, 1 year. Kasira-sira na yung mga sasakyan mo, nasira na lahat. Di pa rin tapos, no? Inaabot ng 2-3 taon, no? Magtaka ka, overpass lang. Diyos ko, nangungusumisyon ako sa overpass. Sabi ko kung sa Japan ito, 1 week tapos na itong overpass na to, no? Kasi hindi nila tutulungan yung project, tinatapos ka agad dyan. Yun nga lang, sasakay ka ng escalator, no? Kasi yung mga train nila, di ba sa train sila sumasakay palagi. Pupunta ka doon sa yung parang terminal nila ng train, no? Puro ilang level yan, so naka-escalator ka. Hindi, nakasakay na yan sa escalator, tumatakbo pa, no? Kaya sabi ko, ang Japan talaga, they are very conscious of time. Tayo, wala lang, no? Kaya nga yung overpass lang, abutin ng 2 taon. Ano? My God. So, dapat nire-rate tayo sa performance natin, no? Wala. Anong mangyayari sa atin? Kawawa din tayo. Tayo rin ang kawawa. However, if the furnishing of such services is affected, ito naman, dito sila magaling, no? Under an agreement between the government of the two contracting states regarding economic or technical cooperation, that enterprise shall, notwithstanding any provision of this article, not be deemed to have a permanent establishment in that other contracting state. Dito naman sila may twist. Bakit? Meron silang JICA. What is JICA? Japan International Cooperation Agency. Ang daming projects ng JICA all over the world. No? So, ganun sila karami ng pera. No? Kayang-kaya nilang makipag technical cooperation all over the world. No? Araw-araw, nung nandoon kami sa Japan, pinaaral kami ng JICA, sponsored by JICA. Araw-araw, ang dami nilang mga scholars dumarating galing sa ibang bansa. No? Ginagastusan nila yan, tinuturuan. May mga ano pa yan, yung interpreter, lahat ng provisions nandun binibigay. Libre ang pagkain, libre tulugan, board and lodging, lahat-lahat na may allowances pa. Sabi ko talagang ang daming pera ng Japan. Why? They can afford to spend. No? Sa atin, scholarship nga lang ng TESDA. Hirap na hirap pa, test na lang yun. No? Eh sila, hindi, all over the world. Kaya dito naman sila may twist, no? Kasi pagdating ng technical cooperation, marami sila all over the world. And that cannot be considered as permanent establishment. Maliwanag yan sa kanilang tax treaty. No? Kaya hindi mo pwedeng i-tax yung kanilang mga technical cooperations. Ang dami nila niyan dito sa Pilipinas. May mga technical cooperation sila ng government of Japan na gumagawa ng yung kalsada natin, yung mga expressway. No? I think itong dito sa Delta, saka yung doon sa may Tandang Sora, nakita ako dyan na JICA project yan eh. No? So, hindi yan considered as permanent establishment. Ang dami pa, all over the Philippines, ang dami nilang projects no, ng JICA. Enterprise of a contracting state shall not be deemed to have a permanent establishment in the other contracting state merely because it carries on business in that other contracting state through a bona fide broker. So ito naman yung provision nila sa broker, general commission agent or any other agent of an independent status, provided that such persons are acting in the ordinary course of their business. Kasi pag ang broker, nang-commission na siya o nag-broker na siya na sarili niya, then hindi siya permanent doon sa binobroker niya na iisang company lang. No? So, hindi siya considered na permanent establishment. The fact that a company which is resident of contracting state controls, ito na yung mga related parties, no? Or controlled by company which is resident of the other contracting state. So, hindi siya mag-constitute ng permanent establishment. No? So, kinopyan nila yung provision ng convention dito. Ito naman yung insurance enterprise ng contracting state except in regard to reinsurance, no? May mga reinsurance kasi, di ba? Be deemed to have permanent establishment in the other contracting state if it collects premiums in the other contracting state or insures risks situated therein through an employee or through a representative who is not an agent of independent status. So, yung mga insurance enterprises, basta nag-collect na sila ng premiums, dito sa Pilipinas, considered na sila as permanent establishment. No? Merong protocol, hindi mo lang nilagyan hari ng date, but later part na ito eh. No? Mayroong protocol na inamend nung Japan and Philippines yung tax treaties nila. So ano ba ang purpose ng protocol? Yung protocol is to amend, no? Parang usap sila ulit about the tax treaty kung paano baguhin, no? Although hindi lang naman for purposes ng permanent establishment ang purpose ng protocol, can also be another provisions in the tax treaties, hindi lang Article 5, no? Pero in this discussion natin, yung titingnan lang natin yung provision about Article 5 on permanent establishment. So ito yung protocol between the Philippine and Japan tax treaties, no? Ito yung binago nila, yung Article 6. An enterprise of a contracting state shall be deemed to have permanent establishment in the other contracting state if it furnishes in that other contracting state consultancy services or supervisory services in connection with a contract for a building, construction, or installation project through employees or other personnel other than an agent of an independent status to whom paragraph 7 applies, provided that such activities continue for the same project or two or more connected projects for a period aggregating more than 6 months within any 12-month period. So yung 6 months na yan, kailangan within the 12-month period yan. No? So hindi siya broken. However, if the furnishing of such services is affected, ito na, under agreement between government of the contracting state, ito na yung technical cooperation na sinasabi ko sa JICA, no? That enterprise shall not deem to have a permanent establishment, no? So, very particular sila on the technical cooperation nila. Kasi pag pumasok na yung JICA, yung project nila halimbawa dito sa Pilipinas is undertaken through the JICA or through technical cooperation, then wala na sinasabing permanent establishment. No? Okay. I have here another sample ng tax treaty. No? Pangalawang example to ng tax treaties natin. This is the RP or the Philippines and the United States of America tax treaty. Dalawa lang yung ginawa kong sample for the tax treaties ng Pilipinas with other countries. Ito yung Japan and the United States. Although maganda din yung Canada, Australia, at saka yung European countries, maganda din kasi may mga specific provisions din sila sa tax treaties na pinapattern din nila sa kung ano yung nakagawian nila. No? So for the United States and Philippine Tax Treaty, anong sabi niya dito? For the purposes of this convention, term permanent establishment, o same lang, no? Parang kinopya lang niya doon sa provision ng model convention. So ano naman yung fixed place of business niya? Includes seat of management, branch, office, store or other sales outlet, factory, workshop, warehouse, mine, quarry, also the same building site or construction or assembly project or supervisory activities in connection therewith, provided, so dito naman iba, no? Number of days naman ang ginawa niya dito. Provided such site, project or activity continues for a period of more than 183 days. Sa hapon, ang sabi niya, more than 6 months. No? Dito, ang sabi ng US, more than 183 days. Pag kinumpute mo yung 183 days, more than 6 months din yan. No? So, ang ginamit lang nila days, hindi months. No? Pero yung length ng time, halos pareho lang yan, 6 months pa rin. The furnishing of services including consultancy services by a resident of one of the contracting states through employees or other personal provided activities of that nature continue for the same or a connected project within the other contracting state. Yung consultancy services, very important sa kanila yan, no? Kasi very technical sila. Yun yung income generating nila, yung mga consultancy services. So, notwithstanding paragraph 1, 2, and 4, permanent establishment not include. So, ito na, yung hindi kasama. Use of facilities for the purpose of storage, display, or occasional delivery of goods or merchandise belonging to the resident. Maintenance of stocks of goods, merchandise belonging to resident for purposes of storage, display, or occasional delivery. Dito may sinasabi na siya na wala doon sa model convention, wala din sa Japan. Ano yung sinasabi niya dito? May insert na siya na word, occasional. Kasi pag routine na yan, palagi na, then permanent establishment na talaga siya. Yung occasional, paminsan-minsan lang. Pero kung palagi na, then permanent establishment na yan. Fixed place of business na, which is taxable. Pag occasional, hindi pa siya taxable. No? So, the maintenance of a stock of goods or merchandise, excuse me. belonging to the resident solely for the purpose of processing by another person. So processing by another person, so meaning raw materials. Maintenance of a fixed place of business for purpose of purchasing goods or merchandise, collecting information for the resident. No? Maintenance of fixed place of business for the purpose of advertising. So dito may advertising na. For the supply of information. No? So mas marami ang activities dito sa US Philippine Tax Treaty. For the supply of information for scientific research or for similar activities which have a preparatory or auxiliary character for the resident. So dito, ang nature nitong advertising, supply of information, scientific research, preparatory in character. No? So ibig sabihin, hindi pa talaga nag-ooperate ng business yung company. No? Or auxiliary character, parang supporting actor lang siya, no? The furnishing of services including provision of equipment in one of the contracting states by a resident of the other contracting state, including consultancy firms in accordance with or in the implementation of an agreement between the contracting states regarding technical cooperation. So, meron din yung United States na technical cooperation, no? So, hindi rin siya considered as permanent establishment. Ito naman yung agent, no, of an independent status. Number 4. To whom paragraph 5 applies shall be deemed to give rise to a permanent establishment in the first mentioned contracting state if the person has and habitually exercises in the first mentioned contracting state authority to conclude contracts. So ito lang ang parang keyword dito eh. Authority to conclude contracts in the name of that resident, no? Unless the exercise of such authority is limited to the purchase of goods or merchandise for that resident. Ito, hindi ko maintindihan anong purpose dito, no? Na limited lang daw sa purchase of goods or merchandise. Okay. He has no such authority but habitually maintains in the first mentioned state a stock of goods or merchandise from which he regularly delivers goods and merchandise on behalf of the resident. Alam nyo, ito hindi na to auxiliary, no? This is already a core function of the business. Why? Kasi nagde-deliver ka ng goods eh. Pagka nag-deliver ka ng goods, consummated na yung sales transaction dyan, no? Kaya nga ang para magamit itong provision ng permanent establishment in the evasion of taxes, ang ginagawa nila, kahit core business functions, ginagawa siya na auxiliary function, no? Ano yun? Ay, nagde-deliver lang kami dito ng goods. Pero di ba yung delivery, consummated sales na yan, no? So, at least itong mga provisions dito na rectify ito doon sa 2018, no? Attribution of profits. Okay. Dito naman sa resident ng state pertains to broker, no? So, may broker, general commission agent, no? Other agent of independent status. Ano naman yung ginagawa nila? Pag devoted wholly on behalf of the resident, permanent establishment siya. Pero kung devoted siya doon sa talagang ginagawa niya independently, then hindi siya considered as permanent establishment. Okay. Pagdating naman sa reinsurance, pag nag-collect ng premiums, considered din siya as permanent establishment. No? Number 7, resident of one of contracting state shall not be deemed to have permanent establishment in the other contracting state merely because nagbibenta siya, resident sells, a termination of trade fair convention in such contracting state, goods or merchandise with such resident displayed at such trade fair or convention. Yun ba yung mga uso noon, no? Yung mag-rent kayo ng mga booth during the convention and then mag-exhibit kayo ng mga trade fair ninyo or products, no? Parang selling din yan and at the same time promoting your products. Pero right now, since digitized economy na tayo, actually, lahat ng scenario sa taxation magbabago din eh. Why? Kasi hindi na rin uso itong mga trade fair or convention. Why? Andyan ang lahat online selling na, no? Kaya mag-iiba na yung scenario, mag-iiba na yung mukha ng taxation natin. Sino na yung itatax mo doon? The internet service providers and also yung mga host, no? Tsaka siyempre kung sino yung mga nagbebenta, sila na talaga yung taxable. Okay. The fact that corporation, ito naman yung sa control transactions, no? So, hindi daw ibig sabihin na control mo yung isang company, permanent establishment na. Okay. Okay. So, ito yung number 9 niya, no? May number 9 pa siya. Okay. So, principles set forth in paragraphs 1 through 8 shall be applied in determining for the purposes of this convention whether there is a permanent establishment in a state other than one of the contracting states or whether a person other than a resident of one of the contracting states has a permanent establishment in one of the contracting states. Alam niyo ba, pag hindi mo alam ang concept ng permanent establishment and you are a tax consultant, pag nagtanong sa iyo ang kliyente mo, taxable ba to o hindi? Ano ba ang tax na babayaran nito? Sabi mo, wala. Kasi hindi mo naman tiningnan yung permanent establishment. At saka yung definition ng permanent establishment. Kung permanent establishment siya, then taxable. If not, then hindi. No? It can be taxed in any other provision of the tax code, but not definitely as a permanent establishment. That's why, for purposes of taxing, excuse me, the transactions of foreign companies here in the Philippines, it is very important that you determine first kung consider ba siya as permanent establishment or not. And then, pag na-determine mo na permanent establishment siya, then you proceed with the computation. Na tingnan mo na kung anong rate ng tax na dapat siyang bayaran. Kasi this Article 5 of the convention, no, in relation pa to sa ibang provision din ng tax treaty. Kasi ang permanent establishment closely related ito sa business profits under Article 7. Kaya nga, hindi ko lang kayo mix up, concept lang muna tayo ng permanent establishment. Pagdating doon sa tax treaties, doon natin explain yung Article 7 on business profits, no? But very important first na i-determine mo kung may business permanent establishment yung isang company dito sa Pilipinas, and then saka ka pa lang pwede mag-proceed kung taxable ba siya o hindi. No? Kasi kung dire-diretso ka lang, wala. Sabihin mo lang ay hindi yan taxable. No? Kasi wala ka namang provision. Wala kang sasandalan na provision to tax that company or not. Pero kung unahin mo muna i-determine kung permanent establishment ba siya o hindi, then that's the time na concrete yung legal basis mo kung taxable ba o hindi yung company. No? So, very important po yung permanent establishment. Okay. Let's have a 5 minutes break, no? At saka may poll question tayo, Hari, before we proceed. No? Okay. Ilan na yung participants natin ngayon? Okay. So, shout out po sa ating 68 participants, no? So, saan man kayo sa Pilipinas, feel safe, no? Stay safe. Okay. So, let's now go to this 2018 OECD Additional Guidance on the Attribution of Profits to Permanent Establishment. Why nangyari to? Because there are so much abuses on tax treaties, no? At since ito nga ang OECD, they are the ones making the international tax policies. So nakikita nila yung mga treaty abuses, no? So somehow they cure some of the deficiencies at saka defects doon sa tax treaties. So may mga binago sila dito, no? Just like yung purpose nila is to prevent the artificial avoidance of permanent establishment status. No, kaya nga kinorek nila yung ibang mga wordings na sa palagay nila ay nagiging loophole at ginagawang dahilan ng mga companies in order not to pay taxes, no? So anong gagawin ng companies? Pakita lang nila na hindi sila permanent establishment and they will not be taxed, no? Ang anong gagamitin nila? Yung provision ng tax treaty, no? Okay. So, attribution of profits to permanent establishment resulting from changes to Article 5, Paragraph 4, and the commentary. Itong Article 5, Paragraph 4, ito yung nagsasabi na hindi permanent establishment, no? Kaya nga binago, no? So, ito yung explanation. Depending on the circumstances, activities previously considered to be merely preparatory or auxiliary. Kasi yun yung malaking question talaga eh. Ano ba yung preparatory or auxiliary services in order na hindi na siya magiging permanent establishment, no? So, in nature, may nowadays correspond to core business activities. So, yung preparatory and auxiliary lang na dati, ano pala siya? Core business activities. Unang tingin mo pa lang naman eh, kahit common sense lang doon sa sinasabi nila na auxiliary, preparatory, core business activities siya eh. No? Yun yung mag-deliver ka, mag-stock ka ng goods mo, tapos i-deliver mo sa customer. Ano yan? Core activities yan. So, in order to ensure that profits derived from core activities performed in a country can be taxed in that country, Article 5, Paragraph 4 is modified to ensure that each of the exemptions included therein is restricted to activities that are otherwise of preparatory or auxiliary character, no? Okay. Anong ginawa ng mga companies dito? Yung fragmentation of activities, chop nila yung activities para hindi sila maging classified as permanent establishment, no? So, given the ease with which multinational enterprises may alter their structures to obtain tax advantages. Kaya tingnan nyo sa documentation ng transfer pricing, it is very, very important na ipakita mo doon sa number 1 na documentation mo, the organizational structure, no? Kasi they are alter their structures to obtain advantages. At isa na nga yan, yung sa permanent establishment status, no? To avoid PE status by fragmenting, PE is permanent establishment. Kaya pag nakakita kayo ngayon, pag nagbasa kayo sa mga international tax na mga column, makikita nyo dyan palagi PE. So, anong ibig sabihin ng PE? Permanent establishment, no? So, hindi na kayo, kumbaga, sa stranger to the PE, no? PE is permanent establishment. At ma-imagine nyo na kaagad, ano ba itong PE or permanent establishment? Ito yung fixed place of business. Kaya nga permanent establishment siya eh, kasi fixed, no? Regular na siya na may business activities. So to avoid PE status by fragmenting a cohesive operating business into several small operations. Kaya nga dyan nauso yung instead na you only have one company doing the manufacturing, the distribution, the marketing, di ba? Chinap-chop nila yan, defragmentize o kaya ginawa nila na bawat uh, trabaho or activity ginawa nilang isang company, no? Para ma-chop siya, and then ano sabi dito, fragmenting a cohesive operating business. So, that is ang company lang gumagawa. Because of this PE status, yung isang company ginawang 10 company, no? So, iba na yung nagmamanufacture, iba na yung nasa warehousing, iba yung delivery, iba yung distribution, iba yung resale, iba na yung sa financing. So, instead na isang company lang, naging 20, 40, no? To complicate the business structure, no? Okay. So, to fragmentize the operating business into several small operations to argue that its part is engaged in preparatory or auxiliary activities. So, matalino talaga, no? Kasi binabayaran itong mga consultant dito kaya nag-iisip, no? Paano maka-avail ng exemption sa taxes. So, the anti-fragmentation rule proposed in this report will address the BIP's concern. Ano yung BIP's? Yung ano ito, yung ina-avoid yung pagbabayad ng tax, no? Yung sa profits, business profits ito. Okay. So ito yung mga initiatives ng OECD. So the report on Action 7 includes revised commentary on Article 5.4. 5.4 ito yung dinalagay nila doon yung mga hindi kasama as permanent establishment, yung mga activities kanina. Nisa-isa natin to during the first natin na lecture on permanent establishment, no? So, contains example of circumstances with specific activities will not be considered preparatory or auxiliary in nature. Okay. So, itong Model Tax Convention na pinakita ko sa inyo na libro, napakakapal niya. Yung provisions dyan para sa tax treaties, napaka-iksi, ilang pages lang. Ano yung maraming dyan? The commentary. But of course, you will know so much about the commentary kasi yun yung mga explanations kung bakit nagkaroon ng ganyang klaseng provisions. Pati yung mga changes. Bibigay ko sa inyo yung mga explanations about the examples para makita natin yung application ng changes dun sa treaties, no? So, we have a very limited time. 30 minutes na lang din tayo. Basahin ninyo itong mga provisions dito sa PowerPoint ko, but we will discuss doon sa examples, no? Kasi mas maintindihan natin sa example. Mahaba ito. Ito yung example illustrating the attribution of profits to permanent establishment under Article 5.4, no? Okay. So, example 1, warehousing, delivery, merchandising, and information collection activities. Diba ito yung nakalagay doon sa Article 5, Paragraph 4 na auxiliary or preparatory services, no? Okay. So, nagko-collect lang daw ng information, nagdi-deliver lang, nagwi-warehouse lang ng goods, no? But those are core activities na pagka-merchandising ka, no? Doon na ang operation mo. Okay. Ito po yung example. So, let's go to the example now. Ito yung facts. Si online company is a company resident in country R that sells goods through an online platform. Yun na yung uso ngayon di ba? Kaya alam nyo, noong 2016, I update on transfer pricing seminar, no, sa IBFD sa Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Yung una kong aral doon noong 2008 pa no? And then 2011, 2013, and then 2016 sa Malaysia lahat yan, Kuala Lumpur kasi nandoon yung IBFD at saka nandoon din yung OECD na sa Malaysian Tax Academy. Nung huli kong punta noong 2016, you will be amazed na yung airport ng Kuala Lumpur, dalawa na magkalaki-laki at ang daming mga warehouse na kinoconstruct. Yun pala, they are already anticipating the digitized businesses, no? Ano yun, bakit digitized businesses na? From the airport, diretso na sa customer. No? Wala na sa department store. No? So the goods are purchased from unrelated suppliers. Online Co operates a warehouse in country S, which is staffed by 25 employees. Siyempre, pagka ang business mo, warehouse na, hindi ka na nag-cater doon sa mga face-to-face na customer, anong tinitingnan na lang nitong 25 employees? Yung mga orders sa internet, and then coordinate it with the delivery. No, yun na lang. So, hindi na yung mga face-to-face na ano pa nila yung damit, di ba? Sukat pa, tapos sunod ng sunod yung sales girl kasi kung ano-anong ginagawa doon sa stocks, no? Kaya ninanakaw pa. So, iba na ang business because of this, what we call na online selling. So, ito si online ko, meron siyang warehouse, no? And then meron siyang 25 employees. Okay. So, the employees handle the receipt of shipments from suppliers. Kasi may supplier siya eh. Hindi naman pwede na ikaw pa yung supplier, ikaw pa din yung nasa sales, no? Pag manufacturing ka. The stocking of the goods and the execution of deliveries to customers in country is using independent delivery service providers in accordance with instructions from Online Co's head office. Si Online Co, may office din siya sa country S, which is located in a different place than the warehouse. Ito na yung fragmentation, no? Online Co's office is staffed by 15 people, no? Which are responsible for the merchandising of Online Co's products and the collection of information from Online Co's customers in country S, no? So, yung isang office will satisfy yung sabi natin na gathering of information, no? So, hindi siya permanent establishment, hindi siya taxable. Okay. So, there is a tax treaty in effect between country R and country S, no? So, yung model tax convention natin. That prevents country S from taxing the business profits of an enterprise resident in country R except for profits attributable to a permanent establishment of that enterprise. Kaya alam mo, sa mga nagtitipid ng tax, no? Yung tax planning nila, ano ang pinapatay nila? Yung permanent establishment na concept. No? Because the moment you are not classified as permanent establishment, hindi ka magbabayad ng tax. Inasa tax treaty yan. No? So if you invoke the provision of tax treaties, then ang una-una mong kung baga sa yung saan ka unang-una magtatago dito sa concept ng permanent establishment. So under the treaty, the profits attributable to a PE are the profits that the PE would have derived if it were a separate and independent enterprise engaged in the same or similar activities under the same or similar conditions. So yun sabi ng treaty, taking into account the functions performed, assets used, and risk assumed. Nasa transfer pricing natin yan. That's why this is in connection with transfer pricing, yung aral natin sa permanent establishment. No? So taking into account the functions performed, why very important yung functions performed? Kasi mag-iiba na ang company pag nag-iba yung functions niya. Assets used and risk assumed by the enterprise through the permanent establishment. Ayan na, through the permanent establishment and through other parts of the enterprise. The treaty's definition of PE includes the changes to Article 5, Paragraph 4 of the Model Tax Convention recommended in the report. No? So, analysis. Analysis na. So, ano yung facts natin? Yung company, meron siyang online na warehouse staffed by 25 persons, and then meron din siyang office lang staffed by 15 persons, all situated in one country pero magkaibang lugar. No? So, nag-fragmentize siya. Provided that the business activities carried on by Online Co at the warehouse and at the office, yung meron siyang warehouse, Meron din siyang office. Constitute complementary functions. Bakit complementary functions siya? Connected, no? That are part of a cohesive business operation. Siyempre, ano bang gagawin nung office? Siyempre, in relation with the business, ganun din yung warehouse. No? That are part of a cohesive business operation. Buti naman nung natauhan yung mga gumagawa ng batas. The warehouse and the office constitute two PEs in countries. Okay. So ano pala nangyari? Yung sineparate nila na warehouse at saka yung office, dalawang permanent establishment siya. So they are taxable. So in country S, under Article 5, Paragraph 1 of the NTC, as each of this location is a fixed place of business through which the business of online co is partly carried on, and the overall activity resulting from the combination of the activities carried on in country is not a preparatory or auxiliary character. No? So preparatory ba yung kumukuha ka ng orders, nagdi-deliver ka na ng orders? Those are not preparatory but core business activities. No? Okay. So under Article 7, the profits attributable to the warehouse permanent establishment of online co are those that the PE would have derived if it were a separate and independent enterprise performing the same storage and delivery activities. Yun na yung business eh. Yun na talaga. Wala nang iba. Yung warehousing at saka yung sa office. Kasi dati sa mall ka pa, no? Uupa ka ng place doon, tapos mag-advertise ka, may sales girl ka na naka-assign doon. Eh, nag-iba na yung mukha ng business ngayon. That's why all this, the permanent establishment, ito yung mga tax treaties, ito yung mga digitized economy, all this, interrelated po sila. At ito yung sabi natin na new landscape of taxation. No? Kasi iba na yung mukha ng taxation natin. How do we tax these companies? So under step 1 of the AOA, ano po yung AOA? Ito yung authorized OECD approach. Ano yung authorized OECD approach? Ito yung nandun sa BEPS, yung BEPS is base erosion and profit shifting, no? Ito yung ginagawa nilang initiatives, no? So the functional and factual analysis shows that online companies personnel located in the country are deal with the purchasing of goods from unrelated suppliers and the sale of goods to third-party customers. Accordingly, online co's head office is hypothesized to have online co's rights and obligation arising from the transaction between online co and the unrelated suppliers and also between online co and its customers. So tingnan nyo na ha, ang OECD, dyan sa kanila palagi is yung hypothesized. Kaya nga sa study natin in transfer pricing, ano sabi ng OECD? If there is no information available for independent transactions, is there no transfer pricing? Sabi ng OECD, no, there is still transfer pricing. If there are no available information about the independent company, then you hypothesize. Kaya mahilig sila sa sinasabi nila na hypothesize. And when you hypothesize, you ask questions na if the transactions are between independent companies, papayag ba sila sa ganitong provision or ganitong terms and conditions? No? Kasi kung hindi, then that is not arm's length. No? So dito, anong ginawa dito ng online ko na principal? Siya yung head office ng online ko rights and obligation arising from the transactions. No? So si online ko na head office, siya yung may-ari talaga ng rights at saka obligation arising from the transactions. Kasi siya, kung baga sa ano, siya yung mastermind talaga doon. Siya yung makikinabang sa ng lahat. That's why lahat din ng risk nasa kanya din. No? Okay. So the analysis also indicates that the personnel of the PE are responsible for leasing the warehouse and hiring the independent service providers for delivery in country S. The PE is hypothesized to have online cost rights and obligation arising from transactions between online co and the owner of the warehouse, and also between online co and the independent delivery service provider. So lahat yan sila are players, core players to the business. No? So, makikita mo naman from the suppliers, from the manufacturer of goods hanggang sa makarating siya sa customer for consumption, anong nangyari, sino yung mga players, no? Kaya nga, sa transfer pricing audit, very important na mayroon tayong supply chain analysis, no? Nandiyan yan, requirement yan, no? Supply chain analysis. Kasi kagaya dito, papakita mo dito sa supply chain analysis mo, saan nagmumula yung mga goods from the manufacturing, and then paano siya nakarating doon sa customer. So, sino yung mga companies involved? So, sino yung mga companies involved? Ito yung warehousing. Tapos, magkukontak siya ng independent deliveries or service providers, no? So, hanggang sa makarating yan sa customer, papakita mo doon kung sino yung mga involved na companies. And if they are all related, then may mga transfer pricing issues tayo dyan. And that's the purpose of our study. I-relate natin yung transfer pricing to the concept of permanent establishment. Okay. So the functional and factual analysis also demonstrates that the significant people functions relevant to the management of the warehouse are performed by the personnel of the PE in country S. So accordingly, the PE is hypothesized to be the economic owner of the warehouse. No? So aside from dito palagi nila yung sinasabi yung hypothesized. Sa current, ano naman yung palagi nilang sinasabi? Substance, no? They are very particular of the substance. Kasi dito, i-hypothesize mo lang. So, pwedeng questionin pa yan ng court pagdating sa court. Pero if you use the word substance, anong i-question ng court doon? Kasi pag sinabi mo na, ano ba yung substance nitong business activity? This is a core business activity. Hindi siya yung sinasabi nila na auxiliary or preparatory. That is the substance of the activity. So, you need not hypothesize. No? So, the PE is hypothesized to be the economic owner of the warehouse. So, sino yung economic owner? Kasi meron tayong tinatawag na economic owner, beneficial owner, the legal owner. So, sino yung economic owner of the warehouse? Siya yung makikinabang. No? Additionally, the step 1 of the AOA or yung authorized OECD approach requires the recognition of an internal dealing between the PE and the head office. Ano yung PE? Permanent Establishment or Branch, no? So, ano yung internal dealings nila or yung transactions between the permanent establishment and the head office? So, in this example, the dealing is hypothesized as the provision of storage and delivery services by the warehouse PE to the head office. No? Kasi dito nag-iba yung sabi natin na taxation landscape natin. Why? Kasi tingnan mo, sino yung may-ari or yung economic owner? Nandun lang siya sa head office and sometimes ngayon karamihan ng head office nila nasa Ireland na or nasa Luxembourg na, no? So nandoon lang ang head office nila. But ang dami nilang mga warehouse facilities all over the world. Nandoon yung mga goods na pag may nag-order, kasi may system lang sila, no? Doon lang papasok yung mga bibili. Kung saan man yung customer na mag-o-order, sa pinakamalapit nila na warehouse situated in different parts of the world, doon na kukunin yung goods na i-deliver doon sa customer. So, sino na yung involved doon? The warehouse and also the delivery services. No? So, can you consider the warehouse as a permanent establishment? Yes. Can you consider that as an auxiliary services? Kung magtago ka doon sa provision ng Article 5 ng permanent establishment, pwede kasi i-fragmentize mo, no? I-chop-chop mo yung activity at sabihin mo na ano lang to, warehousing lang to, no? So, hindi siya PE, hindi siya maging taxable. But considering the core functions now, na iba na yung ating digitized economy na, core activities na yan, hindi na yan auxiliary or preparatory activity. Why? Kasi yun na talaga ang business. No? From the warehouse, diretso na sa customer through the delivery services na ginagawa naman itong mga delivery companies. No? So in this example, the dealing is hypothesized provision of storage and delivery services by the warehouse PE to the head office. So PE na talaga siya, permanent establishment na. So under the step 2 of the authorized OECD approach, the guidance in the transfer pricing guidance, no? So this is in relation to transfer pricing, is applied by analogy to determine the arm's length pricing of the internal dealing between the PE and the head office. Sino yung mga related parties dito sa business in these activities? The permanent establishment, which is considered as branch, and also the head office. So anong sabi ng transfer pricing? The pricing of goods and services between the permanent establishment or the branch and the head office should be arm's length. Kasi pag hindi, then that would be adjusted or they will be subjected to a transfer pricing audit and a necessary adjustment should be made. No? So in this case, that pricing would equal the amount of online co would have had to pay if it had obtained the storage and delivery services from an independent enterprise in country S. Kasi ang nangyayari, yung PE is a related party, yung delivery services also provided by a company owned also by the related parties. No? So, kailangan talaga dyan ang arm's length principle that should be applied. Kasi puro related parties na gumagalaw. Delivery services from independent enterprise in country S. No? Okay, so attributing to such service provider ownership of the assets of online co related to such functions and assumption of the risk of online co-related to such functions. Kaya nga, since papasok na dito yung arm's length principle at saka transfer pricing, so papasok na rin yung 5 comparability factors na sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina. So ano yung 5 comparability factors that I told you? The nature, characteristics of goods or services, whether tangible or intangible, the FAR analysis or the functions, assets and risk, the economic conditions, business strategies, and the contractual terms, no? So those are very important comparability factors. So papasok na sila because of the relationship of the PE or the permanent establishment and its head office and other companies who are also players of the business of the head office. So under Article 7, the profits attributable to the PE of online co are those that the PE would have derived if it were a separate and independent enterprise performing the merchandising and collection of information activities. So the functional and factual analysis shows that the personnel of the PE is responsible for the merchandising and collection of activities. So PE is hypothesized to have online companies' rights and obligations arising from dealings with unrelated parties in the process of providing merchandising and collection of information services. So, considered talaga siya as PE. So, the analysis also indicates that the significant people function relevant to the management of the office are performed by the person of the PE in country S. So, the PE is hypothesized to be the economic owner of the office. Yan ha, ito na yung mga analysis ha. So, sino ito mag-a-analyze? This will be done during the transfer pricing audit. No? Kasi hindi naman sila mag-audit na separately na i-audit natin yung PE. No? Kasama yan sa transfer pricing audit. That's why, when we study transfer pricing, dapat alam natin yung concept ng PE or permanent establishment. No? So, step 1 of the authorized OECD approach requires the recognition of internal dealing between the PE and the head office. So, the dealing is hypothesized as the provision of merchandising and collection of information services by the office PE to the head office. So, they are all core business activities. No? So, the guidance in transfer pricing guidance is applied by analogy to determine the arm's length remuneration of the internal dealing between the PE and the head office. So, pricing would equal the amount that online co would have had to pay if it had obtained the same merchandising and collection of information services from independent enterprises. So, nandito na yung comparability. Compare mo na ngayon yung independent enterprise at saka ito yung actual na nangyayari between the online co at its PE. Kasi yung PE niya, related parties. No? Okay. Okay. So, attribution of profits to permanent establishment resulting from changes to Article 5.5 and 5.6 and the commentary. So, basahin niyo po itong commentary na to ng Article 5 kasi binago na nila para tanggalin nga yung sinasabi na auxiliary preparatory character, no? So, kung auxiliary and preparatory character not subject to tax, no? So, basahin nyo yan. And let's go to another example. May poll question pa na second, ano? Sige, bigay mo muna. Okay. Ilan na lahat yung nag-answer kanina?
79.
Ilan yung participant?
75.
Mm.
Ngayon, may maalis yata.
Ngayon, 75. Pero kanina,
Pero yung sumagot ng point question, 79.
ano yun? May 4 na multo. May 4 na multo, 70. Bayan naaari. Ilan na yung sumagot?
16.
Okay. So, let's continue. Tuloy nyo lang, no? Kasi we still have one poll question after this. No? So, let's continue with the example illustrating the attribution of profits to the permanent establishment under Article 5, Paragraph 5. No? So, I showed you kanina kung ano yung Article 5, no? Yung number 5. Lahat ba sila na nabigyan na ng soft copy ng PowerPoint? Yung mga hindi pa, you just email to us para mabigyan kayo. No? So, the conceptual framework based on principles in previous paragraph, no? So, ito yung sa Article 5, which is the tax treaty provision, no, ng OECD. Number 5. So, example should not be interpreted as prescribing specific arm's length arrangement in actual cases. example lang po to, no? Kasi sa actual cases ng arm's length arrangement or sa transfer pricing, they are based on actual facts and circumstances of the case, no? So the proposed analysis of this example is governed by the authorized OECD approach contained in the 2010 version of Article 7. However, the attribution of profits to a PE, ito, very important po to, in any particular case will be governed by the applicable tax treaty. That's why, ang unang-unang titingnan ng company or ng multinational company, if they are going to establish a permanent establishment or a branch or a subsidiary in a particular country, ang una-unang tinitingnan nila yung tax treaty between the country of the parent company or the owner, no, the economic owner. Una-una nilang tinitingnan is yung tax treaty between the country of the parent company and that of the subsidiary. And para alam nila at saan sila makakapag gagamit ng mga provision doon to make them exempt, no? Tax exempt. Okay. So it should be noted that many tax treaties contain a version of Article 7 that does not require the use of the authorized OECD approach. So in cases governed by those treaties, the method of attributing profits to a PE for the purpose of Article 7 of the applicable treaty might differ significantly from the authorized OECD approach. No? Okay. The treaty might expressly prohibit the recognition of notional dealings between the PE and the non-resident enterprise of which it is a part. No? So ito yung treaties with a version of Article 7 based on the United Nations Model Double Taxation Convention. Kasi aside from the OECD, yung United Nations meron ding Model Double Taxation Convention. Pero between developed and developing countries. Pero ang nangyayari kasi dyan, mas ginagamit yung OECD kasi yung United Nations na Model Double Taxation Convention also refers to the work of the OECD, no? Okay. So let's have another example. Ito yung commissioner structure, no? Related intermediary. Ito yung mga kanina nasa Article 5. Ito yung mga commission agent, no? Agent na lang sila or na-commission na lang sila. So anong difference ng commissioner or agent as compared to that of the full-fledged distributor? Kasi pag full-fledged distributor ka, you own all the merchandise. So you declare all the sales sa iyo yun. So you own the risk. Yung mga warranty na sa iyo lahat yun, advertising. Samantalang pag commissioner kaya ka, very limited lang yung pwede mong gawin in behalf of the principal. Ano lang yun? Kukuha ka lang ng customer and then you see to it and na-deliver yun. Tapos na. And you are paid a very, very small amount lang. No? As compared sa full-fledged distributor ka. So, commissioner structure. Ito naman yung example. No? So, facts. Si Tradeco is a company resident in country R. No? So, buys and sells widgets. Ano yung widgets? Apps pala to sa mga cellphone, no? Selco, a commonly owned company resident in country S, performs marketing and sales activities on behalf of Tradeco in country S as a commissionaire, no? Meaning, the Selco sells widgets in its own name to buyers in country S, but is able to rely on Tradeco under the commissioner agreement to satisfy the obligation to deliver the widgets to the buyers. So, anong treatment sa kay Selco? Ano lang siya, no? Commissioner, no? Commissioner, ibig sabihin, nangungumission lang dun sa sales, no? So, Selco does not own the widgets at any point. No, si Selco. So, benta lang talaga siya. Nor does it have any entitlement to the amounts paid by the buyers for the widgets. So, pati yung amount, wala siyang entitlement doon. Hindi sa kanya yon. So, those amounts belong to Tradeco. Kasi si Tradeco talaga yung may-ari. So personnel of CELCO are responsible for warehousing the inventory and determining and monitoring the appropriate inventory levels. So yan ang personnel ni CELCO, di ba si CELCO commissioner lang. For the purposes of this example, it is assumed that TradeCo pays CELCO a commission equal to a percentage of the sales revenue received by TradeCo from sales made by CELCO on behalf of TradeCo in country S. CELCO's business consists solely of its activities for TradeCo. So TradeCo has no operation of its own in country S and makes no sales to customers in country S other than those made by CELCO on its behalf. So, anong ibig sabihin nito? Permanent establishment si CELCO. So there is a tax treaty in effect between country R and country S that prevents country S from taxing the business profits of the enterprise resident in country R, except for profits attributable to a PE of that enterprise in country S. Kung hindi mo gagamitin in this case, yung concept ng permanent establishment, hindi mo tumatax si CELCO. Pero pag ginamit mo na ang provision ng permanent establishment and you have to show that the CELCO is a PE or is a permanent establishment, then you can tax now the transaction or the sale ng widget by CELCO, no? So under the treaty, the profits attributable to a PE are the profits that the PE would have derived if it were a separate and independent enterprise engaged in the same or similar activities under the same or similar conditions, taking into account the functions performed, assets used, and risks assumed by the enterprise. So, ang isang determinant kung PE ba siya is the functions performed, assets used, and risk assumed. No? Kasi kahit na iba yung sasabihin mo na ako ganito lang ako, but on the actual kung ano yung functions na perform niya, at saka yung assets used niya, at saka yung risk na nasa kanya, then it will determine kung ano yung totoong transaction. No? So assume by the enterprise through the permanent establishment and through other parts of the enterprise. The treaty's definition of PE includes the changes to Article 5 and Article 6, 5.6, no? So the MTC recommended in the report on Action 7. So analysis. Under Article 5, Paragraph 5, TradeCo has a PE. Oh, tingnan nyo na. May PE talaga siya, may permanent establishment. Oh? So yun yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na you have to master the definition and the concept of the permanent establishment. Kasi akala nyo hindi taxable, pero pag ginamit ninyo yung concept ng permanent establishment, taxable pala. As CELCO habitually concludes contracts there on behalf of TradeCo for the sale of goods by TradeCo and CELCO, does not do so as an independent agent. Bakit hindi siya independent agent? Kasi ang sabi, si CELCO, wala na siyang ibang ginagawa on her or its own. Ano lang ginagawa niya? Nagbebenta lang ng goods ni TradeCo. No? So under Article 9, the remuneration the TradeCo pays to CELCO is found to be arm's length. No? So arm's length siya, meaning comparable siya with the independent parties. Taking into account its functions performed, assets used, and risk assumed. So under Article 7, the profits attributable to the PE are those that the PE would have derived if it were a separate and independent enterprise performing the activities that CELCO performs on behalf of TradeCo. So under Step 1 of the AOA, the functional and factual analysis shows that TradeCo's personnel located in country R deal with the purchasing of the widgets from third-party suppliers. So the analysis indicates that the sales of the widgets to the final customers are concluded by personnel of CELCO on behalf of TradeCo. No? So in country S. So the PE is hypothesized to have TradeCo's rights and obligation arising from the transactions between TradeCo and the final customers and also from the transactions between TradeCo and CELCO. Okay. So functional and factual analysis, significant people functions relevant to the assumption of inventory risk and to the disposition of the inventory are performed by the personnel of CELCO on behalf of trade ko, no? So, ano yung inventory risk? Sino may-ari? Si sell ko in behalf of trade ko, no? So, the PE is hypothesized to be the economic owner of the inventory and the party assuming the inventory risk. Step 1 of the AOA requires the recognition of internal dealing between the PE and the head office. No? So, the dealing is hypothesized as the sale of the goods by the head office to the PE. Okay. So, yung iba po nating mga slides is for you to read, no? But, ang concept lang natin dito, yung gusto lang natin ipakita sa inyo is the concept of the PE, the permanent establishment, as one of the provision in the tax treaty. Kasi pag nag-apply kayo ng international taxation, nag-apply kayo ng tax treaty, you cannot do away with the concept of permanent establishment, no? Kasi pag sinabi mo na permanent establishment ka, you will be taxed na po kaagad. Okay. So, PS tax computation, amount should be deducted as cost of goods sold, and the remuneration paid to Selco would also be deductible expense, as well as other expenses wherever incurred for the purpose of the PE or the permanent establishment. Okay. Okay. So, there is another example, the sale of advertising on a website, no? So, ano yung mga advertisement through the website? Very relevant po ito sa digitized economy natin. So, you just read that and may analysis naman, may facts, so it's very clear yung maganda yung pagpe-present dito ng OECD, no? There is a sample of advertising on a website, no? Related intermediaries. So the facts are provided. And also the analysis, no? So the facts and analysis are provided. So madali po siyang intindihin. Okay? So bigay mo na sa kanila, Hari, yung last na full question and also the evaluation. Before we proceed with the question and answer. So, our topic for today is about the free webinar on transfer pricing and permanent establishment. So, we have established to you or explained to you the concept of permanent establishment and how the concept of permanent establishment are being used in order to avoid the payment of taxes through the application of tax treaty benefits, no? Kasi pag may tax treaty ka, titingnan mo na kaagad yung mga treaty provisions natin and we cannot do away with the concept of PE or a permanent establishment. Because the moment you are considered as a PE or permanent establishment, then right away you are taxable. Okay, so please answer the poll question, no? And we will have our question and answer. Yun, no? So, kasi alam nyo bakit wala. Hindi ito pinapansin ang PE or yung permanent establishment, no? Even in the study ng transfer pricing, hindi pinapansin itong PE or permanent establishment. That's why nakatago lang dito yung maraming companies that knows the concept of PS at ginagamit nila na parang tool in order na to pay taxes, no? So, pero kung tutukan mo, if you are a tax consultant, tutukan mo itong PE, may bearing ito pagdating na sa transfer pricing audit. Pagka naman tinutukan ito ng mga tax officers, pagdating sa transfer pricing audit, kakaroon sila dito ng maraming issues na findings, no? Sa concept ng PE or permanent establishment. Actually, ang dami pang homework ng taxation dito sa Pilipinas, no? So, ito lang PE, dapat tutukan to, no? So, our next seminar is free webinar on transfer pricing and tax treaties, and also free webinar on transfer pricing and international taxation. No? So, dalawa pa next week. So, for the month of June, dalawa po yung ating seminars or webinars na ikakandak, no? And I would like to congratulate yung mga students natin, no? So, you are starting your career right, no? Ako tuwang-tuwa ako dito sa mga estudyante na parang naghahanap na sila ng mga opportunities to enhance or to acquire knowledge, no? Kasi talagang magagamit nyo yan eh. Do not confine yourself sa school, no? Na doon lang kayo kukuha ng source of knowledge. Ngayon sa internet at saka ang dami na talagang discipline lang ang kailangan sa internet kasi maliligaw ka eh. Yung oras mo mapunta sa iba kasi ang daming entertainment, no? So instead na makabuluhan yung gagawin mo, entertain ka na doon sa mga chismes, entertain ka na doon sa mga movies, no? Pero kung talagang discipline ka at you want to expound your knowledge na igagamitin mo to improve your career, ang dami po sa internet, no? We must be selective lang at saka piliin natin yung talagang kailangan natin. Kasi yung iba, kagaya yung magbabad ka sa Facebook, nako, puro chismis. At the end of the day, wala naman yun eh. Kasi, okay, inalam mo kung anong ginawa ng iba, at the end of the day, may maitulong ba sa iyo yun? No? So, kaya nga yung dialogue ko palagi noon eh, kahit nung bata-bata pa ako eh. Sabi ko, nood kayo lang ng panood ng TV. Pakakainin ba kayo ng TV? No? Upo ka sa harap ng TV maghapon. Tawa ka ng tawa dun sa mga palabas na para sa hindi naman nakakatawa, para lang may pag-usapan, para lang may gagawin. Pagka pinag-aralan mo naman kung ano yung mga shows na nakikita mo, wala din namang kwenta. No? Kaya nga tanong ko, sige, manood kayo ng TV maghapon, pakakainin ka ba ng TV? No? So, ganun din, haharap ka sa internet maghapon. Ano yung pinagkaaabalahan mo dyan? Tutulong ba sa iyo yan? Kasi kung hindi, yan yung ginagawa palagi ng OECD na hypothesize. Ano yung hypothesize mo? Hypothesize kung makakatulong ba sa iyo yan as a professional o hindi. Kasi kung hindi, then do away with it. No? So, ganun lang. I still invest. Paano ko nalaman itong mga tinuturo ko sa inyo ngayon? I still invest, no? At my age. Kaso lang, nandiyan na talaga yung mga senior moments na nawawala ka minsan, no? Pero, okay lang yun. Tanggap naman kasi may senior moments na talaga yung senior citizen, no? So, anong gagawin mo pag senior ka na? Hindi naman pwedeng sa isang tabi ka na lang at naghihintay ka na lang ng angel's death, no? So, anong gagawin mo sa habang ay buhay pa? Improve also yourself at saka try to ano din, i-relate mo rin yung sarili mo kung ano yung demand of the time. Kagaya ngayon, digitized ano na, economy na, nasa internet na lahat. Eh, hindi ka mag-internet, ano mangyayari sa iyo? No? Kaya nagtatyaga tayo, may mga webinars tayo pa rin na kinakandak kasi wala na mga face-to-face na seminars. No? At ang nakakatuwa lang sa webinar po, kasi kagaya ngayon, yung na-reach out natin are not only people belonging to one place, iba-ibang places. No? Yun lang din ang nakakatuwa sa webinar. Hindi mo nga makikita na nandyan sa harap mo, pero alam mo naman na na-reach out mo. No? So, I would like to say thank you po sa lahat ng participants natin. Thank you very much for joining us in our free webinar and hope na nakapagbigay tayo sa inyo na additional na kaalaman. And from there, sabi ko nga sa inyo, do not bank on what you hear today, i-expound nyo yan. No? Yung mga terms, yung mga topics na alam nyo, pwede nyo pang dagdagan yung kaalaman nyo, then, ang dami po yung internet nandyan lang. No? Okay, sige.
Kay Ma'am Kay Ann Ferrer.
Okay.
How do OECD guidelines impact tax treaties and domestic tax legislation?
Ang ang OECD guidelines, yun ang tinatawag po natin na soft law, no? Paano sila nag-impact? Sila yung role model, sila yung basihan. Kaya if you try to read the OECD transfer pricing guidelines, ito yung OECD model conventions, marami silang commentary at saka marami silang pro forma at the end, yung mga annexes, yung mga index to the documents. Nagbibigay sila ng mga format, matrix, para doon sa mga developing countries, sample nila on how they do about the local legislation. No? So, sabi natin, the OECD is a soft law, pero yung soft law na yan, very, very strong influence po siya sa tax treaties between countries at saka sa domestic law ng bawat country. Bakit? Kasi sila yung ina-adapt. And if you try to look at this OECD Model Tax Convention, adopted siya by more than 100 countries in the world. No? At saka yung tax treaties natin. Tingnan mo, yung mga tax treaties natin, Philippines with 43 countries. Pag tiningnan mo yung mga tax treaties na yan, halos yung mga wordings na yan is OECD Model Tax Convention. If you try to look at the Model Convention ng United Nations, also patterned from the OECD. So, sino talaga yung roots ng Tax Policy Administration of the World, the OECD? Bakit? Yung United Nations, meron silang mga experts, mga team, no? Pero they convene only not so often. Samantalang ang OECD, meron silang group of researchers, meron silang mga team that really work on the tax policies. Kaya sila yung naging authority when it comes to tax policy administration. No? So including the tax treaties, including yung mga samples for the local legislation. Okay. Thank you. Meron pa?
Meron pa, ma'am.
Okay.
Galing kay JM Nieto.
Okay.
Applicable po ba ito for non-resident individual, especially non-resident aliens?
Yes, po, applicable sila lahat. Basta depende yun sa activities na what they are doing here in the Philippines. Kasi kung mapapansin ninyo, yung mga sinasabi nila noon na regional area headquarters, ano ba yung ginagawa ng area headquarters na yan dito sa Pilipinas? Because kung pasok na sila sa concept ng PE, then they can be PE and they can be taxable. Okay, so with that, I will... Oh, sige.
In what way of taxation will be implemented po? Is it taxable annually?
Yung PE, yes. Kasi kung permanent establishment na siya, ang classification dito sa Pilipinas, lahat ng klase ng taxes dito sa Pilipinas, magbabayad na siya. Kasi ano na siya consider as taxable entity na siya dito sa Pilipinas. Although, the tax treaty will apply, pero yung sa local taxes natin, magiging taxable na siya, depende kung mag-a-avail na siya ngayon ng mga tax treaty benefits natin at saka yung mga tax holidays na ino-offer natin under special laws, kagaya ng Executive Order 226, yung BIO. BOI natin, incentives, o yung sa Board of Investment na nagbibigay din ng mga tax holidays, yung mga incentives natin under the PESA registered enterprises by paying 5% in lieu taxes, no, na preferential rates. So, doon na siya papasok. Pwede na siya mag-avail ng mga incentives natin. Okay? Okay, so today is Friday, no? So, yung preparation na para sa 2 araw natin na ibang activities na naman, no? Kasi working tayo ng Monday to Friday, so yung Saturday, Sunday. So, take note na yung Saturday, Sunday nyo, marami kayong activities dyan, but ito na yung sinasabi ko, ha? Yung, basahin nyo rin, no? Yung may time kayo, please, worth sharing ko naman yung Smart Tips by Mami Elsa, no? Kung may mga pangarap pa kayo sa buhay, may mga gusto pa kayong gawin, yung mga extra time ninyo, bigyan nyo rin ng time yung mga gusto nyo pang marating sa buhay. Kasi yung time na yan, yun yung magdadala na magiging totoo yung mga pangarap nyo. No? Kasi, wala namang gagawin bukas. Kung ano-ano na lang naisip, no? Isipin nyo yan na naka-anchor yan doon sa gusto nyo sa buhay nyo para yung gusto na yan, marating nyo, magiging sa inyo. Kaysa wala lang, parang wala kayong goal, wala kayong destination. So, anong marating mo? May marating ka rin, pero hindi yung gusto mo. No? Kasi kung ano na lang yung darating, yun lang. Pero kung pinaghahandaan mo, alam nyo, kaya natutuwa ako dito sa mga webinars na kinakandak ngayon. Kasi ito yung inaral ko na binayaan ko ng pagkamahal-mahal. And then ngayon na-apply ko na, na-share ko na. So it's really worth it, no? So parang nakakataba ng puso. That's why I'm very happy also for the participants, no? So I would like to say thank you and have a good weekend ahead. And see you on our 2 webinars next week, no? So thank you very much.